What's up YouTube, it's another episode of the How To Guy, and today we are doing the Fimi Palm, the complete menu system, as quick as possible. There's a lot of information to get through in this video, so if you just bought your Fimi Palm, you're in luck. You might learn a few things today. I really appreciate it if you hit the subscribe button, so let's not waste your time any further and let's get started with this camera right now.
Just a tip, do not swipe too hard on the screen, it won't work, just gently will do the job. If you get a format SD card error, then swipe once from the down and swipe right 4 times until you get system settings. Then click once more to the right and click SD card format and then format again and OK. This will do its thing. Let's get started connecting your mobile phone. Swipe from the top and then go to your Wi-Fi settings on the left hand side. Make sure 2.4 GHz is selected, then power up your app and click connect. Then all you need to do is wait for it to load the Palm next to the little black box. Click that and click back at the bottom right. At this point, if your phone asks you to use another network, click decline and you should see all the options available. You cannot do face tracking, however there is a hack. If you double click the screen before you load up the app on the Fimi Palm itself, it'll allow you to do face tracking. If you swipe from the top down, you'll see all your modes: follow mode, FPV mode, pitch lock, gimbal lock. Let's go through these modes quickly. Follow mode pretty much goes wherever you want it to go along the panning and tilting. FPV goes in almost all directions. Pitch lock will lock using the joystick at whatever pitch you set. And gimbal lock will lock every single axis in that one direction. Let's continue. If you swipe once to the right, you'll see ultra wide, which is only available 4K. Narrow and super scope are for 1080p only. Ultra wide in 4K, narrow, and I can't see much difference between super scope and narrow. Let's carry on. You can go into your camera settings and see JPEG. If you click that button again, you'll see J and D. D stands for digital negative, which is basically like RAW. If you swipe once to the right, you'll see your metering mode. Centered basically uses the center of your screen for your exposure. Click it again and you'll see spot metering, which allows you to click a point on your screen to expose in that area. Let me show you an example. The top of the screen has been exposed. If I click on the pot plant, and it'll expose for that. The last one, zone metering, uses the entire screen to figure out the exposure. Let's continue looking. If you swipe once to the right, you'll see NTSC, which is mainly used in America, North America, and PAL is mainly used for the rest of the world. It also assists with the way lights flicker on your screen. H.264 is the older video format, but I still use it today. And H.265 is HEVC, which is a little bit less space on your memory card, but you need more codecs to deal with it. LDC stands for lens distortion correction. You can switch that on or off. This is LDC on, which basically crops into the photo. If we switch it off, let's switch it back on and you'll see the crop. It's very subtle. It's not a big deal, but yeah, I'd leave it on. Then if we carry on to the right hand side, we'll see gimbal settings. You can change your joystick speed. Sorry about the focus issues there. And you'll see how quickly it goes at joystick speed 10. And if we go back down to 1 or 2, it's much slower and more cinematic if you're going to do panning. If we carry on, we can change the follow speed, which is the actual speed when your hand moves to the bottom side of the gimbal, how quickly the top responds. And I think it also has something to do with face tracking and how quickly it tracks you. But I haven't confirmed that yet. That's a follow speed of 10, which is probably not that recommended. If you hold the joystick in for 3 seconds, you'll be able to zoom in if you push up on the joystick, and pushing down will zoom back out again, which is pretty cool. It gives you quite a cool stabilized video. It's just cropping in on that 4K sensor. If you are under or overexposed, you can push right or left on the joystick to change your exposure compensation value. Swipe once more to the right and you'll see your calibration option. This is useful if something has gone wrong with your gimbal. Just click start and allow it to do its thing for about 15 seconds. And once it's complete, your gimbal should be pretty good to go again. Click OK on your screen. Swipe once more to the right and you'll see system settings. You can power on automatically or off depending on what you want to do. It'll just power the gimbal off. And you can also lock the screen after a couple minutes if you just keep clicking on that button. Pretty useful. There's also a beep thing which will take off the beep if you push record. If you keep swiping right, you will see your device info, which tells you your camera firmware that you've currently installed and your gimbal firmware, which is kind of cool in case they do release new versions. Your battery info is also on that page. You can change your language, which probably shouldn't be done, and I've never clicked reset device because I'm too scared. Swiping from the top down and then once to the left gives you that little display icon. That basically just changes how your screen display uses the entire real estate, which doesn't really make much difference. If you want to see a more natural view, then click that particular icon and it'll show you what you'd see when you record. You can also change the brightness of your screen by clicking on the little sun. Let's go into video mode. If you click on the top left, you'll see all your video settings. There's 4K, 25 frames per second. By the way, this depends on PAL or NTSC, which how many frame rates you get. And you'll see 2.7K and 1080p 24 frames per second. On the left hand side, you'll see pick, cure, I think it is, and you can change fine or super fine. Let's show you a little bit of example. This is fine in ultra wide, a little bit less sharp. This is super fine, probably a little bit of a better picture quality. Let's go back to super fine again. That looks pretty nice. More detail, but uses more memory card space. Let's click on the top left again, and if you swipe from the left hand side down, you'll see color, which you can use natural, which is more contrast, F-log, which allows you to color grade it slightly better afterwards in post. Let's show you the difference between those two. So this is the natural color profile, and let's switch to the F-log, which is a little bit more dull but allows you to color grade it. Let's do a little comparison. You can see the one is slightly more contrasty on the left. Sound settings are on that same page. With the video, you can shoot high, low or mute. So this is sound set to low on the Fimi. It's very windy today, and this is the sound set to high. I think you're gonna have to order an extra bass for the Fimi Pocket that you can order from AliExpress, and that'll allow you to use an external microphone, I think. In video setting mode, if you click on the bottom right by that little settings icon, you can change your ISO by just dragging that slider. If you make a mistake and you want to fix that up, you just click auto on the top right. You can also click on the top left to change to your white balance, which you can also move with that little indicator at the bottom. All you need to do if you make a mistake is click on auto again and it goes back to the default. Then click on the little gear to go back to video mode. From video mode, if you swipe to the left, you'll go into photo mode, which has got some interesting features, as well as being able to change your shutter speed, which you can't do in video mode. If you click on the top left, you will see it'll cycle through white balance, ISO and your shutter speed. Then all you need to do is use that little slider, which is kind of fidgety, but it does work. You can see there it's a 3-second timer on the shutter speed, 1/25 shutter speed. If you mess anything up, you click on the little auto button on the top right to reset it. Then you can change the ISO in a similar manner if it adjusts your darkness of your image. Click on the little gears to go back, or in the middle of the screen to go back to photo mode. Click on the top left to actually go into HDR photos. Make sure that's on, and the HDR photos look quite nice. More dynamic range in your photos between the light and the dark areas. And I'm really impressed with the HDR photos of this camera. You can also carry on going and change your long exposure settings on that particular screen, 15, 10 or whatever seconds. You can change the ratio of your photo, 16:9 and 1:1, it's just your photo ratio. Your timing allows you to set a timer before it takes, let's say, a long exposure photo, and night shot is for use at night, which I haven't tested. If we carry on swiping to the right, we'll see panorama, which is 3:3 at the top left. You can also click and change your shutter speed at the bottom right, and the same method as we showed you for the photo. Click on the screen to go back to the main panorama. If you cycle through the different options, 4:1, 1:4 or 3:3, it basically means you're taking one column with 4 different rows of photos in it. Swiping once more to the right and you will get the hyperlapse, which is also used for time lapse. Clicking on the top left will change you to allow you to use the joystick and move your joystick around before you actually shoot a time lapse. This allows you to use multiple points across the sky, and when you push the record button, the camera will automatically do that over your time interval, which you can do these kinds of things with the camera. Clicking on the bottom left will give you your interval, and I struggle to get this to show up nicely on the screen, but for example, a 3-second interval would mean it's taking a photo every 3 seconds. Your duration is how long it's going to take, for example 10 minutes. Clicking on the little icon on the bottom right will give you your ISO and your white balance. However, you can't change your shutter speed. Technically, you can't do long exposure time-lapse photography with motion in them on this particular camera. If you wanted to shoot a hyperlapse, then you need to click on the bottom left and set your duration to 1/2 right on the bottom. Then set your duration. Click back in the middle of the screen. Make sure that icon is gone with the plus, which you do by clicking the top left. And then click record and do your walking quite slowly. And eventually you should be able to do a hyperlapse kind of similar to this. Swiping once more to the left and you'll see your slow motion option. This allows you to shoot 8 times or 4 times slow motion. You can also set your ISO, your white balance in a similar method to the rest of the things. Click on the screen in the middle and you can change your speed from that particular icon on the top left, and it also allows you to change between fine or super fine, and your color mode, which you can use natural or log. The slow motion on 4 times is not great, it's in 1080p, and the 720p is 8 times slow motion. It's probably even worse. Not great, but it's probably better to use 2.7K 60 frames per second and slow it down 50% in your video editing software. This is a much better slow motion result and it's better quality.
I really hope you enjoyed this video. Maybe leave a like or a comment. I really appreciate that, and see you again next time.